What is going on, YouTube? So coming back today with my Houston Cougars preview for 2016. So this is my first non-Power 5 team to do in the preview so far. Also the only non-Power 5 team that I think should be ranked inside the top 15 and is ranked inside the top 15 for a lot of people in their way too early top 25s. This is a team coming off a 13-1 season in which they won the American Athletic Conference and also won the Peach Bowl against Florida State, something that got them some national recognition, definitely. So let's go ahead and start with my first of three key players, and the most obvious or the most important player for Houston, Greg Ward Jr. The biggest name for Houston. He's a guy that should be able to compete for the Heisman this year. Was a tremendous quarterback for Houston last year, and should be the reason why they returned to the same height again this year. Now, he struggled. It seemed like he struggled with health a little bit at the end of last year. I believe he had a problem with his hand, but that's obviously nothing to be concerned about long term. This is also a guy that is one of the best dual threat quarterbacks in the country, and that definitely should not subside heading into 2016. You're talking about an American Athletic Conference in which they played some extremely close games last year, and if they did not have Greg Ward, then it probably would have been a much different story for their team last year. So my second key player is the Texas transfer and the guy who should be their starting running back this year, Duke Catalan. So according to a quote by Tom Herman, he is the second best back he's ever coached behind Ezekiel Elliott. High praise. He is a guy that was a big name at Texas and one of the many big name transfers that Houston has coming in for the 2016 season. They will need a good running game this year if they want to be successful. They lost their top receiver, DeMarcus Ayers. That's a big loss. He was one of the better receivers in college football last year. And they're going to have a balanced running game if they want to be able to be successful in 2016. Now, my third key player for Houston is Stephen Taylor, probably the best returning player along this Houston defense, leading, I believe the leading tackler from last year, also had 10 sacks. So his last year at Houston needs to be a big year. They have heavy losses in defense, especially in the secondary, most notably William Jackson. Now, he's going to have to be the heart and soul of this defense. He's going to have to be the leader of Houston's defense. Now, get into my first of two X factors, and that is for Houston to not play so many close games. If you remember last year, a lot of their games were extremely close. They barely managed to get by a few teams, and I believe it was UConn they lost to last year. I'm going to pull up their schedule from 2015, but it's something that's going to have to improve in 2016 because their schedule gets a little bit tougher, especially out of conference. You're talking about a team last year that played a very young Louisville team and only beat them by 3. Granted, a Louisville team that will be much improved this year, but they also played like Tennessee Tech and Texas State out of conference. Now they do get Texas State again this year, I believe, but you're looking at a much improved Tulsa team. You're looking at what will probably be an improved Cincinnati team and a UConn and Navy team. The Navy teams that will still put up a very tough test. Now, they did lose to UConn last year. They might have made the college. It's hard to say if they would have made the college football playoff. Maybe not. Maybe they would have. But if they hadn't lost to UConn, it would have been a much bigger discussion, obviously. The close games against Cincinnati, Memphis, Temple, Louisville, those are going to have to be subsided in 2016. Now, my biggest thing with Houston in 2016 is their out-of-conference games. I'll get into that a little bit later when I talk about the schedule, though. So my second X factor is replacing heavy losses. I believe they lose 7 starters along the defense, and they also lose their leading receiver on offense. So they have a heavy influx of players coming in. I mentioned this earlier. They have Rashad Samples coming in from Oklahoma State. Just from my counts, I've seen him play before. Very talented receiver, just can never get his head on straight. So that should be a big pickup for them. Chance Allen should step up this year as the primary receiver. He's their leading receiver coming back. Obviously, I mentioned Duke Catalan earlier. They have some players coming in along the defense to be able to, be a little bit better this year. Brandon Wilson should be able to step up. He's a multi-threat guy. I believe he was one of the only players in the nation last year to score a touchdown on offense, defense, and special teams. And then also, Tyus Bowser's going to have to step up next year and really be one of the keys to this defense. Now, get into my trap game for Houston, and for me, it's Tulsa. I know this might sound weird. Tulsa, a team that I believe went 6-7 last year in a bowl loss to Virginia Tech. Weren't able to get a game-winning drive, but they have Dane Evans coming back this year. I believe one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the country, and the only reason I could believe that this is going to be a trap game for them is because it comes in their biggest stretch of the season in the American Athletic Conference. It comes it comes after 2 games against UConn and Navy, in which they will be playing 2 of the better teams in the American Athletic Conference. So my biggest game, and this is where I'm going to talk about their out-of-conference schedule a little bit. My biggest game for Houston is OU. If they want to make the college football playoff, they're going to have to beat OU. They're going to have to also beat Louisville. If they beat both those teams and they prove to themselves, they prove to the country that they are worthy of being in the college football playoff, and they are on par with some of the Power 5 teams. Like I said, they already put themselves on the map with that Peach Bowl win over Florida State last year. This will officially say, we're here, we're ready to go, we should be in the college football playoff. Obviously, they're going to have to sweep through the American Athletic Conference competition, but in my mind, if they can get through Louisville and OU, then teams like Cincinnati, Tulsa, Navy, and UConn won't be near as hard. A team like Memphis also that was extremely tough last year should not be as good this year. They obviously lose one of the best quarterbacks in the country in Paxton Lynch. So get into my record prediction for Houston, and I do believe that they will go 12-2. I don't think they're going to win the Louisville or OU games. I think Louisville will be a vastly improved team this year. It will be a very good game, but I don't know if they're ready to take on the spotlight of OU and Louisville. And I think a lot of the things that people are overlooking is just their vast losses on defense. Losing a guy like William Jackson, that was one of the top corners in the country. Not to mention they lost, I believe, 4 of their top defensive backs. That's not going to be easy to replace against teams like OU, like Cincinnati, that have very good quarterbacks in Gunnar Kiel and Baker Mayfield that will be able to throw all over the place. Same thing with Tulsa. Even though they lose Sterling Gilbert, they still have Dane Evans. Like I said, one of the more underrated quarterbacks in the country. Even though I do think they'll sweep through their American Athletic Conference competition, I think they will be able to get another American championship and win a decent bowl game. But again, I think it's gonna. I don't think it's the time for a non-Power 5 team yet, especially Houston. If they had more returning experience, it might be different, but they don't. That's just the situation we're in. So that pretty much does it. A very interesting situation to talk about with Houston. I will be coming back later today with my Florida Gators preview. So that's pretty much it. So yeah.